Now, what is going on with Grays? They can't kill you off. This is not what was in the cards.
Yeah, it's a strange journey. We started the season, in the midst of a pandemic, and there was a lot of things we had to figure out to get back to work safely, as obviously you, of course, know in your line of work as well. And yeah, a couple episodes in, they approached me saying, they had this plan for DeLuca. So, of course, the immediate thing was sort of a shock. Of course, you're like, whoa, what? But then, when the story was explained to me and I had the opportunity to see, I think, what the story could do for people, how it could help people grieve. There's been a lot of loss this year in the world, and certainly to continue this sort of this human trafficking storyline that we have been telling the last season, which is a cause that's finally starting to get some traction in the media, which is another pandemic that's going on in the US and globally. So I just think it was a great opportunity to tell some really important stories for the world to see. And having a chance to direct before I left was a really nice way for me to kind of write a love letter to this show that's given me so much on my way out the door, and gave me a chance to spend a lot of time with the people that I love so dearly, that I've gotten to know over the years at Grace. So yeah.
Who was the toughest cast member to direct?
The toughest cast member to direct? No one really. I honestly, being completely honest, I definitely had some anxiety around directing my castmates, because, you're meeting them on a different playing field. You're meeting them on a different power dynamic, because the director holds a lot of power on the set. So you go from sort of being equals as actors, and now I'm sort of, above you, and, in a obviously polite way, in a creative way, telling you what to do for better, for worse. And I was met with just such grace by all of the actors. They were so encouraging of me, and no matter what I told them to do, they did it, and with passion, with speed, with grace. So I was just humbled by my cast members and the trust that they put in me. And I've now watched my episode, I think, 1,000 times, because, I have to edit it and put it all together. And so I'm really proud of the work, and I really am excited for everybody to see it.
Every actor I've interviewed that gets behind the camera, they get bitten by the bug, and they want more of that. Do you feel that?
Definitely. And I think it's because, I started acting by complete accident when I was 10 years old. I actually just posted a clip on my Instagram of my first job when I was 10 years old in Rome, in their famous Cinecittà studios. And it was like, I always just kind of kept doing it, but it wasn't necessarily something that I always I decided I'm going to be an actor. I just kind of kept doing it, and I kept kind of pursuing it. I kept getting work. I loved it. I loved the people. I loved the artists that I got to work with. So I kind of every year kept going I think I'm going to keep doing this acting thing. I love it. I'm interested in it. I went to school for it. I studied and was classically trained and all these things. But, I sort of, in getting to work in television, being around cameras and directors, I always had this very big curiosity and interest for being on the other side of the camera. And luckily, Grey's Anatomy has been the home for many people to grow. Meg, one of our writers on the show, started as a PA. She's now an executive producer, one of the head writers on the show. There's been paramedics and script supervisors who have jumped to directing over mentorship on our show. So Shondaland's a really amazing place that recognizes talent and invests in that talent to grow. And so when I saw that, I wanted to be a part of it. I knew that this was a vehicle that I could use to grow my career and grow my skills as a director. And, my first episode ever on Grey's Anatomy was actually directed by Kevin McKidd, who's my fellow actor on the show. And so I saw oh, wow, there's other actors directing on the show. That's so cool. And so then it gave me confidence that I could pursue that. And I found an incredible mentor in Debbie Allen, who is just such an amazing woman, who's easily one of the hardest workers in Hollywood that I've ever met. And she's been a great mentor and friend of mine over the years, and has really helped me create, a course for directing. And so I'm so grateful to her and all her help and trust that she's put in me. And I'm really proud of the episode that I made. So I can't wait for people to see it.
I can't wait for more. Shonda is incredible. What Shonda Land has set up is,
Really?
I don't know, I thought it's the pay it forward and everybody getting to try on different hats. It's genius. But for you, take me back your very first day on Grey's as Dr. DeLuca. What do you remember?
I remember I had a ton of medical jargon. I was blasting out of an ambulance with a patient. Kevin McKidd was directing. I was super nervous because it's not this kind of small cast, like indie kind of drama. It's an ensemble piece. It's action. It's medical. It's doctors saving lives. The stakes are through the roof. So everything is fast paced. There's lots of people. There's sirens going off. And it's just kind of like, whoa. And it's also a big show, you know, that at the time when I joined in season 11 was already a show in its 11th season. So, I mean, jumping onto this very established train was difficult, I think, as a new actor. And it's something that, you know, a lot of the new actors, every couple of years, we usually have this sort of this pattern that we introduce interns, and, you know, a few of them stay and most of them go. And that's sort of how we kind of keep this cast growing and alive. And that was sort of my journey as well. But, you know, it's if you kind of say, how do I fit into this? You know, there's already like 12 people who are the leads of this show. Where do I, you know, what's the thing that's missing? And that was, I think, my biggest journey in the beginning of like, how do I complement this show? How do I stand out on this show? So the first year or two was just kind of figuring out that. But yeah, I mean, I messed up a bunch of lines. I was horrible in my surgeries. I had Linda Klein, our medical supervisor, yelling at me because I kept putting my hands down in the OR, which is a no-no. You have to keep your hands up because otherwise you go down and they're not sterile anymore and you have to scrub again. And so I kept putting my hands down. She goes, Giacomo, cut, no, get your hands up. And I go, oh shit, sorry. So anyway, it was a learning curve, but now I feel very comfortable in the OR after all that time. And I got to meet a lot of doctors and medical professionals over the years and have like really deepened my respect and gratitude for the medical community and how hard they work and what they do and how they just literally, you know, play God and hold people's lives in their hands every day. It's a really magical, incredible profession. And certainly in this past year, they've gone above and beyond for us. So we love you, all our doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals. We love you guys so much.
And I love what you did with this character. What was the key to getting Dr. DeLuca with his mental health to show that properly through your character?
I think from the beginning, you know, when Krista Vernoff joined the show as a showrunner, everything really changed, and things just got significantly better and more nuanced. And she just came into the show with such gusto as a showrunner and really woke it up. And I think in one of my first conversations with Krista was like, you know, DeLuca needs a thing. There's like, he needs to have an angle. He needs to, right now I'm just feeling like he's kind of two-dimensional, and I want him to be three-dimensional. I want there to be something that we explore within him. So she said, let me think about it. And then pretty shortly she created a storyline which was actually planting a seed for the future, which is that my father came onto the show, and my father suffered from bipolar. And because it's hereditary and genetic, it was planting a seed for the future for my character to then start, you know, displaying symptoms of bipolar. So, so I'm grateful that she, you know, had that sense of like looking that far down the lens to plant something years in the future that would then bear fruit for my character as an actor that I could play. And so between the end of the last season and the beginning of this season, we really got to see a whole different side of DeLuca and tell a story for people who are suffering that, you know, it is difficult, but you can get help, and, you know, help is around you. There are people who are, and if it's not people in your family and your friends that, you know, are refusing to understand what you're going through, there's organizations that will understand. There are hotlines that will understand and guide you to those places. So, yeah, and I think a lot of mental health talk is about stigma. And I think the stigma for us that we really wanted to display is, you know, especially in this season, you see DeLuca in his dark blue scrubs finally becoming an attending, which is, you know, the top of the top in the hospital. And so to see a character that is an attending in a hospital, balancing a large budget and commanding a ton of doctors and people, but beneath him, having extreme power, extreme responsibility, and he's one who's suffering bipolar, that people who have bipolar and other mental illnesses still can have illustrious, amazing, fulfilled, big careers is great from a representation standpoint to be seen on screen, so that people who are young and discovering and getting diagnosed can see that and still have hope that they too can become something great, and that this mental illness doesn't have to stunt their growth in any way. It's difficult just because you have help, just because you have medication, just because you're dieting and exercising and getting enough rest. These are all things that are going to hugely help, but that doesn't mean that it goes away. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have bad days. But the idea is that with help, with these things, you can certainly live a much more fulfilled and balanced life. So to be able to promote that message and help people has been amazing. And I've gotten so much feedback from the fans that have written to me, people with have bipolar and other mental illnesses, and thank you. I felt so seen when we watched your episodes. Thank you for representing us correctly. We're always seen as, people who are crazy and unbalanced and all these things. And there was a real human touch to the stories that you guys told about bipolar on the show. So it was a nice feeling to feel like, we nailed it and people connected with that.
You played it brilliantly. I know that was it was a hard, board to walk right there. So good job with that. And then what about your character performed some operation, some procedure that then saved a real baby's life? Did you see that article?
Yeah. I got to sort of Zoom with that family, which was, again, like another thing that over the years, like it'd be easy to say that it's the only situation, but of course it's not. It's one of like 100 stories over 17 seasons of this show being on the air that it has literally saved lives. It's like one of many stories over the years that's happened where somebody's seen something on Grey's Anatomy and it saved their life or saved their mother's life or their daughter's life or whatever the case was.
Yeah.
Because, our writers are always bringing cutting edge technology and procedures to the show to make it exciting. So sometimes we'll tell stories that haven't quite been invented, but they're in trial. So by the time somebody sees something on our show, that technology or patent might actually be cleared and invented, and that procedure might be being done. So it's a way of really educating people of like the cutting edge of medicine.
Zoom like? Did you Zoom with the family?
Yeah. So they had a daughter, and they lived in Dubai, and their medical team was telling them that there's nothing they can do for their daughter. Their daughter had a heart condition, and she was still pregnant with her daughter, and there was nothing that they could do for her. And so she remembered, she being a doctor herself and a Grey's Anatomy fan, remembered that there was this one operation that was done by Arizona Robbins and DeLuca in the OR, where they operated on a woman in utero while she was still pregnant and saved her heart and saved her life. And so she started researching, and then there was a guy in Ohio who was like, I can save your baby's life. Come here. If you come to Ohio, I'll operate on you and I'll save your baby's life. And they did it, and he did. And it was just like, it's remarkable. It's remarkable. Medicine is moving so fast too. It's like what couldn't be done 3 months ago can be done now. It's like the technology is just moving so quickly. So it's really up to us to research and do that stuff, and to not take no for an answer for anybody who's listening.
I love the tribute you and Ellen Pompeo wrote to one another. Tell me about y'all's relationship.
Ellen, even though we began working really closely in these past couple of years as we became love interests on the show, even before that, Ellen was someone who came up to me, on day one and was very, very kind and gracious and accepting of me. And I think, she's got Italian roots. I have Italian roots. She was excited about, having another Italian on the show and sharing in our cultures and food and wine and all the kind of things that come with being Italian. And she's also been a really great friend and mentor to me over the years. I mean, she's one of the most successful women in Hollywood and is such a household name and is so much more than Meredith Grey. You know what I mean? And so she's really inspiring as a businesswoman, as a producer, as an incredible actress who's built this show. So it's been invaluable to have her friendship over the years. And, our last scene was on the beach together, and it was kind of, I felt like there was sort of a duplicitous experience happening for me, because it was like I was going through in a way what DeLuca was going through, in the way of like DeLuca was saying goodbye to Meredith and I was saying goodbye to Ellen. And it was like very similar. So it was very easy to call on those emotions, because I kind of felt the same thing. Like I was like, oh my God, this is the last time I'm going to share the screen with Ellen. This is the last time, you know, and Ellen kept hitting me saying, stop saying that, stop saying that. She's like, I don't want it to be true. Stop saying that. But it was nice. Like, you know, this great friend and actor that I've been working with for these past years, we got to spend this day at the beach together, just her and I. We just got to talk and reminisce about all these years working together and how much it's meant to me. And it was such an amazing opportunity to spend time with this person and say goodbye.
In your personal life, you've got an anniversary coming up. Is your 2-year anniversary coming up in April?
Yeah, yes. Oh, very
what
good.
do we have planned? What are we doing? See, the first one, you're into it. Second one's a little trickier.
Yeah, I don't know. What's the gift? What's the second year? Is it like?
I've been married 25 years. 2, I can't remember. I just know you got to show up big.
I'll Google it. Yeah, I don't know. You know, the pandemic obviously is like, you know, and I'm still working. So when you're working, you know, on a set, you're trying to be diligent because you interact with people. You don't want to compromise your production. So you don't, even though maybe there's a patio or a restaurant open, you know, ethically, I don't feel like I should be doing that, because, you know, I don't want to put at risk, you know, the production.
What you're telling me is you have not planned it. You got to start thinking a letter, just a little letter.
I know.
Like
yeah. Oh, I can do all that. Yeah. No, I'm good at all the, I'm a really romantic guy. I can do all the letters and the poems and the flowers and the candlelight dinner. Yeah. That I'm good with. But yeah. I don't know. I'll have to give it some thought. Thank you for reminding me.
Yes. When did you know she was the one?
Pretty much right away, but I think like a lot of times when you find love, like you don't want to admit it right away, and you have all these voices in your head that are telling you like, don't do that, run away from that, like you don't deserve that. You know, it took a minute to realize and actually listen to those voices in my head and what they were saying. But yeah, our love was very fast and furious, and we never looked back. And I'm just so happy. She's yeah, a lucky man.
I love that. Well, I'm so glad I got to talk to you. So what's next? And hopefully you'll come into studio with next. What's next? Directing? What's next? Acting? Are we just seeing what's out there?
Yeah, I've definitely got some things lined up that unfortunately I'm not allowed to talk about at the moment, but I hope to, you know, follow up, and maybe when I can announce those things, I can come back and talk to you about it.
You'll come in studio. We need you.
Yes.
I mean, I like Zoom, but this will be great.